Hello, I'm Alan Parsons, and you are listening to and watching Linea Rock.
Welcome to Milan, Mr. Alan Parsons,
Thank
and
you.
welcome to Linea Rock. It's such a pleasure to interview you, and you're here presenting the new album, which is coming out today, actually.
It's very good. It's very good.
After all that you achieved in your career, what does it mean to you nowadays to make a new record, which actually comes 15 years after the last one? Is the motivation behind it any different after so many years? What still drives you to make new music? And is it a new beginning or a sort of farewell?
Wow, that was a long question. It is, I hope it's a new beginning. I've returned to a style I've always felt comfortable with the Alan Parsons project. I think it's more in keeping with that style. The last album was kind of an unsuccessful experiment in electronica. It was an attempt to capture a younger audience.
Right.
Maybe we got a couple of hundred young people, but it didn't do so well. Although I found it fulfilling to do that, and it introduced me to the technology that is now normal.
Yeah.
I was terrified of not having a tape of the album, and I made sure that we did tape backups.
Okay.
But nowadays it's okay.
Yeah.
You can, and it was a long gap, but I've been doing other things. I've been keeping busy, producing other artists, making educational projects. But it's nice to be back. I'm hoping it, like I said, I'm hoping it is a new beginning.
And the cover artwork is very, very particular. This is a concept album, in a sense, about magic, if I'm correct. What those magic sticks that look like a piano and that, bring you somewhere which you don't know. Actually, what's behind the idea and what's the secret? I mean, is this the secret of success, in a sense?
No, all magic tricks have a secret. That's the reference. But the magic wands, the road of magic wands, it's just an abstract notion that the magician is walking on magic. I think the artwork is great. The director of the videos is also heavily involved. His name is Patrick Reed Johnson, and he not only directed both the videos that we're putting out for the album. He also wrote one of the songs, the last song, and it's going to be in a movie that he directed called 5/25/77, which happens to be the date that Star Wars came out.
All right.
So, and it was very close to the time that iRobot came out, which was very good timing on my part.
One of my favorite tracks is Sometimes, sung by Lou Gramm, and it's unbelievable how good it still is and how emotional his singing is. And then there's also Steve Hackett, Vinnie Colaiuta, Nathan East as a special guest on the record. Some very big names. How these connections happened?
Well, the guitar player in my band, Jeff Coleman, had been doing some gigs with Lou Gramm, and he made the introduction. I emailed him the song and he said, "I love it," and said, "I'll do it." Strangely, I have yet to meet him. We did it. We recorded the vocal at a distance.
That's the modern times.
One way. Saves on airfares and hotels. But it's very possible now to do it that way. the rhythm section that you mentioned, Nathan East and Vinnie Colaiuta were. I mean, I'd worked with them both before, so
Okay.
we knew each other. But a dream rhythm section.
Yeah.
And Steve Hackett, I met him actually here in Italy for the first time when we were both on tour, and we just did a cruise with Justin Hayward. So Steve was on that along with Al Stewart and the Zombies and Barbara. It was a working cruise, we all got to play. But he's a great musician.
Yeah.
With the magic thing, I almost keep saying magician when I mean musician. So.
And did you give him the freedom to do?
No, it was written.
Okay, everything was written by you. Okay.
But he did a few effects. You'll hear a few, effects that he did, which were very welcome. But no, it was very much a written piece.
At which point of your career and why did you decide to jump on the other side of the barricade, and start to be a musician yourself? Which was the motivation?
I was always a musician in some respects. I mean, because I worked as an engineer and producer, it doesn't mean to say I let go of my musicianship. But I just I put my guitar away and let it gather some dust.
So you first started as a guitarist and then you developed it.
And piano. I played piano and flute as well.
So.
But it incredibly useful experience to have a musical background if you're going to work as an engineer. I mean, for one thing, I knew the names of all the instruments of the orchestra, which some people don't. When they start engineering, they don't know a difference between a trombone and a French horn. It's important to know that.
Since your musical journey very first started was the early 70s, how much Alan Parsons' music became a different animal, in a sense, a different project, let's say, through the years? Or do you think that you stick to your original idea?
I haven't really changed the way I work as a producer. I've always done things a certain way. I've always insisted that you have a minimum of 3 musicians playing together for each song. I hate working with click tracks and drum machines.
Okay.
Sequences and stuff. I much prefer to have people play. That's a philosophy that I've stayed with.
Has music ever become a job in your mind? I mean, making money, living with music, maybe can some way affect, the natural talent.
It is a
for
living.
Good or maybe not.
I can't afford not to make records or play live. But it has to be said that playing live is most people that are in the music business now have to play live because they can't survive on records. And I think that goes for me as much as anybody.
What defines your essence better as an artist? Being a sound engineer, producer, musician, singer, composer? What do you feel? How do you see yourself first?
I still see that my main role is in the studio, at the console.
Okay, that's your reign.
Yeah, that's where I feel most comfortable. That's what my training is. That's what I've been doing ever since I was 17.
And being such a complete artist gives you also a more complete vision of a song since its composition, because you have the complete, image in mind. Or
I think one of the roles I have as a co-writer. I mean, I don't often work as a songwriter on my own. I usually collaborate with others, but it's my input that I give as a producer that sometimes will change a song so much that becomes a hit as opposed to just being a song.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like to do. But you could argue that I have too many jobs to do that, to produce, engineer, write the song, sing it. You know, it's a lot of roles, but the one I'm most comfortable is producing.
Since you said that, is there any producer or sound engineers in the last 20 years that you estimate in particular? Do you listen to new music or?
Not much is the answer. We are more likely to watch movies at home than listen to music. And I occasionally will listen in the studio. I'll listen to other people's music just to get a feel of the sound and stuff like that. I like Imagine Dragons. They're my new favorite band.
Okay. Any producer name that comes to your mind? New one? No, there's no.
I'm not really familiar with the new names in production.
Okay.
But of course I know the people of my generation, George Martin, Dean Jones,
Okay.
songs. So, but I had the good fortune to study under George Martin, so that was a good thing.
That brings to the next question. You work with the Beatles. What does somebody like you think about, the Beatles phenomenon, which still lives on, and how were the Beatles up close and personal, and working with them at the legendary Abbey Road studios, especially in that particular period of their career? Which is your best memory, and actually, which is your analysis of their phenomenon?
They were not happy. They were not happy people in the last two records. I think the atmosphere on Abbey Road was better than Let It Be, but Let It Be was. They didn't really want to be doing what they were doing. They didn't want to be filmed. They didn't want to be under the scrutiny constantly of the camera. And the Rooftop was a very necessary thing for them to do because it raised their spirits. But it had a bitter aftertaste because one knew that would be the last time they would play together. And Abbey Road was more like four Beatles making their own albums individually. You didn't see them together very often.
Oh.
So Paul would come in, and I remember he came in every day for a week at 2:00 to sing "Oh Darling," just to get his vocal cords in order. And he said, "No, I'll try again tomorrow. No, I'll try again tomorrow." And eventually, but the other three weren't there. It's just it.
Which was your particular input in that?
Oh, none at all.
record?
I was a trainee tape operator. So
Okay, so.
No, I was paid to keep my mouth shut. But it was great to observe. Certainly.
It was a learning experience, I bet. Yeah. And you also were there for the recording of The Dark Side of the Moon with Pink Floyd. At that point, did you actually understand what you had in your hands, for the masterpiece that it became after, which was, the feeling while recording it?
I think we all felt that it was Pink Floyd's best work to date, but I had no idea I'd be talking about it 50 years later. I don't think anybody knew that.
Okay. Is there any particular image or story that comes to your mind thinking about those days?
Not that I haven't been talking about for the last 40 years.
Okay. Okay.
I'll write a book eventually.
Okay. Are you working on it?
I'm kind of working on it. I'm not actually physically typing it right now, but yes, I think I'm going to do it. need a long holiday to write it, I think. A long period without distractions.
Since we talked of The Dark Side of the Moon, which is on the list, the favorite records of a lot of people, also colleagues, musicians, is there any record that you particularly appreciate, that you wish maybe you were involved to?
Who's next?
Okay, The Who. Yeah.
I love
that
that
one. Why that one?
There's not a bad song on that record.
Okay.
Every single one is like a great song.
And also the sound of it, which is
I
actually
like the sound, yeah. It's Glyn Johns knew what he was doing.
Yeah. And what do you think about Noah's version of Eye in the Sky? And which was the feeling the first time you heard it, if you did?
I think I've only ever heard it once.
Never heard it?
I heard it, yeah. I
Okay.
heard it, but only once.
Only once. Did you like it?
Yes, I like it. It's good. How long ago was it? Like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
15 years ago?
Yeah. 12 years ago.
And she's Italian.
Origins, yeah.
Yeah.
You're known.
Was it a hit?
Yes, in Italy it was a big hit. Yes. No, that version was very touching because it was like pretty much acoustic and goes to the core of the melody. Great song. You can. You're known as a born perfectionist. Have you always been this way, or you made a virtue out of necessity during your career? And is it all?
I made a what? Necessity?
I mean, a virtue out of your necessity, of being, having everything perfect. And is it a value, or it can be paradoxically like a limit to be such a perfectionist?
I don't see that I'm a perfectionist. I think I strive to get a result that works. There are occasional rough edges to all the records. I'm not really sure why I've established that reputation of being a perfectionist. But,
your records always sound, perfect.
well, that's great, but that doesn't make me a perfectionist.
That's a good point. Do you think that legend is something that you're born or you can become? Hardworking, you can become a living legend. Is art in your DNA? Or sometimes, external factors and influences can pull, talent out of a person. From your experience and also of the people that you work with.
I think my craft was taught to me. I don't think. I mean, yes, having natural talent is important, but to learn to be a good sound engineer is something that can be taught by education. But I think if you're going to achieve magic, then there has to be some natural talent too.
You went to a school for sound engineering,
No.
It was just experience?
There was no such thing when I started.
Okay.
The only way to learn was being a tea boy, coffee boy, in a recording studio. That's how everybody started. And you just learned from others.
Okay.
That's how it was.
Which has been the hardest moment in your career, and which is the best one?
Hardest moment. Obviously, when you are pleased with something and it fails to perform for you, it's a disappointment. I remember thinking that Limelight, the song Limelight from Stereotomy, with a great vocal by Gary Brooker, we released it as a single and it did nothing. So that was a disappointment.
Okay.
I'd made other records which didn't do well. I did an album with Lenny Zaktek, which failed to form. I did singles as Alan Parsons, which failed to really do well. But I think it's great to be back with a label that seem to know what they're doing, promoting it really well, giving it the best possible chance. That's good. To answer your question about good moments, the whole idea of becoming the name on a record cover as artist, as opposed to just a line of small print produced by Alan Parsons. That was a big moment, and it was a very good feeling there. But probably the greatest feeling of elation was when I had 2 consecutive #1 singles. That was in the UK. The first one was with Pilot, the second one was with Colaiuta. So I don't think that's ever happened before. The same producer got 2 consecutive #1s. That was a good moment.
You said you worked on the new record the modern way. Today we have so many possibilities, both in terms of recording and also promotion of music. If you could have just one modern tool back then, in the early 70s and 80s, which one you would bring back in time?
I think the what we call cut and paste audio.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Whereas we can take this and put it here. It's a tremendously time-saving thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
You can completely restructure a song in seconds, whereas to do the same thing with tape, you're cutting, splicing, copying, sticking back together. It's very primitive.
But do you think that would have changed, rock history? Because, some songs, has been like one take and good, as they were, but...
Yes, I had some one-take wonders too, with Alstra. He just went in and sang the song, one take, and it was done. It was finished. It's great when that happens. But some modern technology slows you down, but other things speed you up.
Like, for example, what slows you down?
Having too many tracks.
Okay, that's a good point.
What you do.
Because it's easier to record.
But I try to get over that by being decisive. Some producers, they'll end up with 8 tracks of bass guitar, and then say, "Oh, we'll choose later," which is the best one. But I like to be, make the decision straight away, and not to do that. But because you can have an unlimited number of tracks, it can sometimes be a nuisance.
Last question, which is the definitive lesson that you learned that you can share, maybe with young musicians and producers of today?
I think the spirit of collaboration is very important. Don't try and do everything yourself. I mentioned, I think that I don't often write songs alone. I usually work with somebody else. I'm always open to ideas in the studio. I'm always ready to listen. And I don't want to be considered a dictator. I don't want to be considered. You have to do it my way. It's the only way to do it. I'm always receptive to working as a team. And I think some people are perhaps too engrossed in their own viewpoint and their own opinions about things. Music recording and songwriting should be a collaborative process.
Thanks very much for your time for this interview. It's been such an honor for me.
Thank you.
And have a good day and have a great gig at Frontiers Rock Festival, which is... Be there, yes. Ciao.
Ciao.